sometimes in my experience, like we don't always want to get caught up at this point of attack where they're trying to really jack you up, kind of making that move a little earlier and then use your speed and run and then start to play the angle game.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just as a defenseman as well, recognizing your strengths, right? If you can't match him hip to hip with his initial move at attack and then be able to beat him to an angle, right? You're going to have to understand that you're going to try to funnel him more than stop him at the point of attack. And I think is that Costabile number 26, if I'm mistaken, I apologize. But if it's an offensive midfielder and that's me on defense, I'm not going to try to stop him at the point of attack. I'm thinking funnel him into that slide as early as possible, knowing that I'm probably going to get beat off the point of attack and probably will get beat with the speed just because he's an athletic midfielder. I'm not used to playing defense, which I think he makes a mistake here. And then it forces his defenseman to be in a bad position now because that slide's so long because he has that run with all that space from up top.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. And again, something that this presentation is not really focused on, but it's always worth mentioning is that throwback pass is right on the stick, allowing his teammate who's curling to the ball to step in and shoot before the slide gets there, second slide. So we had a question which actually lends really well to this next clip. Do you suggest attacking a defender's opposite foot of the side that you want to go to? So we think about, setting up your dodge so that you end up finishing your steps with a jab opposite and go. But one thing I think is interesting here is you can really tell too, especially, from a midfielder perspective, how people are positioning to force you one way or the other. And usually they're doing that as a kind of part of their defensive game plan because that's where they want to send the dodger. Here out of the box, Brendan Curry does a really nice job of setting up his dodge towards the middle of the field. And then you see how this Army defensive midfielder is very shaded, but he's not at a point where he can quickly step up and make contact. So it allows Brendan to quickly make a move, attack over that top foot, and force that defender to hedge just enough to open up a pass to the crease.
Yeah, I think here, what you have to know about Curry is I don't think he's the quickest off his first move, but he understands how to set it up enough that defensemen bite. And then once he sees them bite on his first hard step left, he's got the speed to burst out of that and keep running. So he does a great job seeing that. First of all, he can't dodge left really because it's going to be a waste. He's going to be dodging into two guys over there, his two teammates and the defenseman. He knows he's going down that right alley. So he's like, how can I take this hard step left to get myself to get back to my right hand? And after he does that, he knows out of anyone in the country, he's one of the fastest players, that he's going to be able to create that separation. That defenseman has to slide to him. Otherwise, he's getting a shot on the run. He's also a great on-the-run shooter from distance. So again, recognizing his strengths and just setting them up really well.
Yeah, and I think that's to your point. Brendan, in terms of the quick feet and chopping and making multiple jabs and stutters, maybe isn't as much of his game as it is. He is one of the fastest players that I've seen play, and so, like you said, he's setting that up to his advantage, and that's also similar from the attack side of someone like a Jordan Wolf, where despite knowing maybe where he wants to go or where he's trying to attack, they're able to use that speed to their advantage. And I think that's obviously on the contrary to what we saw in those Asher clips, where he knows he's not going to get that separation as much speed-wise, but he's playing to his strengths. And then, when you really start to elevate yourself as a dodger, right, you can start to feel what's the guy is doing on the ball, but we have to keep having our eyes up, understanding how the defense is possibly going to slide, how have they been sliding, and then how can we continue to attack out of that. So Jules, as we transition there, so we had obviously a couple speed type dodges. We had a couple dodges, that are, maybe a more bigger guy using size, physicality, in these next couple clips here, especially this one from Michael Sowers. How would you kind of start to describe his movement there?
Yeah, so when I think of Sowers and his athleticism, I think that that's his biggest trait, and within his athleticism is his feet, right? So his ability to take hard steps and really get defensemen to commit to them, right? And I don't think he's the fastest player once he's going full speed, but his hard steps and his first couple steps are so overly quick that it forces he gets so open at the point of attack that it forces defensemen to have to make decisions from so far away because he's getting so much separation in the beginning. So right here in this clip, he's dodging against a short stick, right? And he's going to really hard sell that right step. He falls down, right? So what that does for him, right? His hands are free right away off that point of attack. If that defenseman doesn't slide, he's getting a step down, right? So he recognizes that. And what he knows as well is that on the backside of this defense, he's got a short stick on him. Someone's pre-sliding, right? This is horrible defense on Johns Hopkins' part because you should never slide a Jason off the strip like this. Someone should establish himself hot from the crease and shot up for kind of hedged up to Mike Sowers to begin with. I don't know why they weren't doing that, but immediately when he gets his hands free off that initial hard jab step, right, that guy decides to slide, and now it's time and room all day for the next guy.
Yeah, and Jules, one thing that I picked up from you that I really like, and I think Sowers does a nice job of it here, is, this is a different setup on his dodge than what we saw with some of the earlier guys. Here, he's chopping his feet. He's using more of this stutter as a way to kind of hesitate and make it harder for the defender to really know when he's going to make that move. A lot of the other moves that we've seen so far are guys kind of attacking at a consistent speed to close that gap, and then they make their hard plant and go. Here with the stutters, kind of gives a little more deception, but what I really like is you see his bottom hand punch out to the side, and he gets some head movement and shoulder movement with that move. And that's something that I know that you do a great job of teaching right there. But you can almost, from this angle, if I can really get to the right spot, you can almost see like the back of his numbers from our angle. That's how much turn he gets to help sell that move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a guy like Sowers, and this is something I really try to commit to because I feel like, for me, I have a good point of attack explosion, and I have good speed. I think I have good of both. I think someone like Sowers has great point of attack, right? You want to work on how can I get this defenseman to really think that if I'm Mike Sowers, to really think I'm going down that right alley. It requires me to take a hard, explosive jab step with my right foot, get my stick and my body, my head going that way, right? And if you do it quick enough and that's your athleticism, right? Defensemen have to react, because if they don't, and that's not what you were doing, well, then you're going to break off and immediately have your hands free for a righty step down. And you have to understand, as a Dodger, you know what you're trying to do. The defenseman doesn't. So they're reacting to you as if you were actually trying to do something. And once I started to kind of think about dodging like that, as opposed to being like, I'm just going to kind of half-ass my motion. And I was like, no, let me really commit to it and see what he does. And if you don't have to go back, but I don't think it's clipped there. On this one, Mike Sowers' initial move doesn't really work, and he just pulls it back out, right? So he's with a short stick. He's got a short stick matchup. He's not in his head. He's not thinking, I didn't get this. I'm just going to, on this one where I didn't commit enough, I'm just going to, move the ball. He didn't get it. He's like, I'm pulling it back out, and I'm going again where I'm going to get this defenseman to bite the second time, because I know that if I commit to it again, he's going to have to respect what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We can't see the beginning piece, but usually younger players and coaches, there's always a little bit of a battle between dodging and moving it and dodging and redodging. And, my advice to younger players is part of that is earned, through your time as a player, showing that your coaches that you can make the right decisions, showing that you're a proven threat to where, hey, if this guy gets a short stick like Michael Sowers, we want to let that guy work a little bit. We know that he's going to create. It's a matchup that we like. There are also times, though, earlier in the offense that we want to just dodge, draw a slide, and start that party and get the ball rotating. And so, and not letting the ball die in your stick. So as we start to go into some of the counter moves and redodges, that is always a balance, and it's even a balance for guys at the pro level. So it's never something that is going to be a hard and fast, you do this here, you do that there, but it comes with experience. It comes with watching film and understanding, hey, it's okay that he redodges here. No one rotated. We like this matchup. Let's let this guy go to work a little more, and let's position ourselves in the adjacents so that number 19 catches it loaded and he's ready to step in from 10 yards.
Yep. That's just the advantage of having those, those firecracker feet, but that's just his strength, right? And it's just understanding what it is and setting it up consistently over and over again.
Absolutely. So this next clip, Jules and I were watching this a couple weeks ago, and it's probably one of the sickest initial moves that I've seen in a while. And I call this a skip split. Some people call it a hop split. And again, this is similar to the approach like we just saw with Sowers, where he's chopping his feet. But here, Nakai uses a subtle hesitation to hop and land. And when he lands on that, here he lands more on 2 feet, but he ends up landing and he jabs hard. Look how low his body gets to sell that opposite move, get that guy to jump, and then he's able to attack the middle of the field and get off a shot.
Yeah, so again, here, you think of a guy like Nikkei, I don't know if his feet are as quick, right? But I know that he has the explosion out of his moves. So for him, I think if I was coaching a guy like Nikkei, I would tell him, this is a move you need to commit to doing way more often and selling it like this. I think that's a reason why Sowers is so good, is he understands that when he commits to his moves with his firecracker feet, right, that he's getting that point of attack separation, and that's giving him an automatic advantage. Nikkei right here does a great job of committing to it so much, and he has the bounce out of his step to create the separation. So it's really more for him, how can I continue to overly commit to my dodges when I'm executing them, so that the defenseman that's playing him really thinks he's trying to get down that right alley, right? And then he has the explosion that once he commits, he's creating so much space now that that defenseman has to slide. And obviously he misses a shot, but this is a great shot opportunity because he creates so much separation at the point of attack.
Yeah, it's a great point. And like you can really see his head and shoulders like really drop his center of gravity. He has the explosion to explode out. That's why you do this stuff in the weight room. You want to have functional movements so that you can explode out opposite. Pulls up. It's a really nice move. And again, Jules, my thought is, for all players, is to experiment with the different type of footwork and different types of moves. Because if it's something that you don't typically do, you never really know if it's something that you can add to your arsenal until you try it and start working on it, right? And I think that's the balance of what are my strengths, get good at my strengths. But hey, if I haven't nailed down the footwork for a skip split, like I know I feel this way too. It doesn't mean that, just because I don't do it naturally doesn't mean that I can't work on it. And it could be something that I could eventually get better at. So it's always worth taking the time to kind of keep looking through. You'll see this again, similar example in this next clip. Little skip split up top for Hopkins against Penn State. Alex Kincannon here. When he lands, he gets that quick jab opposite. Notice how, again, we talk about attacking that top foot. The defender's pushing him down the alley, but he still wants to make that guy think he's trying to get to the top side, gets him to step and lunge upfield, and that gets his hands free even more when he attacks down the right
Absolutely.
alley here.
I think for Kincannon right here, a guy I played with over the summertime, a guy I played with against at Hopkins a lot of years, right? I don't think he is the fastest player, right, or the quickest, but he does a great job of selling his split move. And what he does here is he's in a position when he sells his split move that he creates the space, and once he gets his hands free, he's already in shooting range. Okay, so for whatever reason, the defense, he's on a short stick. They don't think he's a viable threat to have a slide pre-slid, but he creates so much separation, and he doesn't have to go sprinting down the alley where potentially that defenseman could catch up to him and cut his angle off, or have a slide drawn that he has to move it. He's doing this split knowing that he gets separation on his split dodges. And once he gets out of that move, his hands are coming back right away out of 2 steps, and he's in a position to shoot the ball.
Yeah, it's a great point. And Jules, like one thing too, like some of these clips, it's like, yeah, like why isn't there a slide ready? Well, if you take a look here, you've got Cole Williams, big time lefty attacker for Hawkins. You have LR on the inside here is one of the best off-ball shooters, during his couple of years. And so that's where the defense always has to make decisions about what shots to give up. And, maybe Penn State is saying here, how many times, if this guy takes the shot 5 times, how many times is he going to hit that from 12 yards, And so that's kind of always the battle between it. But, if you're a player that can consistently get their hands free, you're going to get these opportunities, right? And then you're, again, maybe the next time around after you hit this, they're a little quicker to slide, and then you can hit an easy adjacent pass for a layup.
Yep.
Oh, nice reference to the clock in the group chat here. 11-5, low and away. All right. So again, like here, these next 2 clips kind of fit under the category of, setting up our dodge and thinking about that point of attack. And I think, when guys have the ball on their stick, one thing I say a lot, Jules, is, you have the ball. And so you dictate your matchup, you dictate where you want to go from, right? You dictate when you want to go. And, the more that we kind of understand that, you don't always want to let the defense speed you up into, making things that you don't want to do. So Anthony DeMaio here does a really nice job of what we call drifting and drifting upfield to get that guy going upfield. And then he splits back underneath as he feels like he gets enough space to then get under and finish moving back to the front of the crease.
Absolutely. What I love about the drift move is I think it's a move that really anyone can have in their arsenal, because what you're doing is you're changing your height and you're kind of, lulling the defenseman a little bit. And then what you're doing is you're dropping into a hard step, which that hard step, how athletic you are depends on how well you can get out of that step. But if you can get the defenseman to really change his posture and then try to drop with you, he's going to have to regain his posture to catch up no matter how athletic you are. So if you're a bigger guy, right, if you can do that drift move and take that step and get him to, regain his posture, well, now you can use your body, right, to move past him. And if you're a quicker guy, right, you're drifting, when you cut out of that drift, well, now he's stuck a little bit behind you and you're just speeding up as a little quick guy, protecting your stick and going to finish it like we see here with DeMaio. I think a guy like Chris Kluche is a perfect example, a guy that kind of likes to use the drift move around the low GLE area where he kind of goes upfield, goes up like he's going to go top side, hard plant. Once he tucks his shoulder and gets a little bit of his shoulder into you, past you, there's nothing you can really do with that. That's why this is a great move to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, and especially too from that spot on the field, most defenders don't want to give up what? They don't want to give up top side, right? So they're always going to be a little overly concerned about guys getting strong hand up the field. And so, even here, like very subtly as well, and it's not something that I would say would be like easy to always do, but you can see that DeMaio ends up planting when this defender is almost mid shuffle. And so that's like one thing too, like he has to time his shuffles and make sure he's not getting too wide on his base as he's relaxing, possibly like you're talking about. And then you can catch that guy kind of mid shuffle. And then now you have him beat, once he gets underneath. Same thing we're going to see in this next clip. Again, it's kind of attacking approaches, but using your body here. The same thing is going to be here from Joey Manone. Oh, we got 3 replays on this one.
The fire move, that's why. There we go.
All right, so same thing here. All right. Now, again, notice a couple of things, right? 5-6 seconds left on the shot clock. All right, ball is rotating for Duke. But again, using that drift move to catch that defender lunging, and not as fundamental of an approach as probably as he would have liked. Set it up, tuck, get underneath, use the crease dive.
Yeah, I think this one is a little bit different in the sense that he is dealing with a more of a rushed approach as opposed to a guy that's kind of stuck on him. He knows he's playing defense. This guy's kind of running out a little bit. I think Joey does a great job of right away when he catches a ball. I don't know if he knew it or not that there was going to be this rushed approach, but he immediately starts going top side, and then that approach is a little bit out of control top side. He recognizes that, and once he kind of feels that, then he takes that hard step, and he's going underneath back right where the defenseman came from. So it's more, the other one was more of a side to side. This one was more of a forward backwards in the sense of how he sets it up. That he knew the defenseman was coming this way. He's trying to get back going the other way.
Yeah, and one thing I think here too is, one thing obviously a lot of defensemen really emphasize is approaching with their stick out, and I think by Joey drifting, it causes the guy to kind of have to readjust instead of approaching on that straight line, and that split second where maybe his stick isn't in that perfect stick out position, it makes it easier for Joey to split back through, and just something interesting to as you're watching it, again, like if you imagine like if his stick was a little straighter out, maybe he catches that stick a little bit, but that drift, you never know how it can help change the technique on the approach. Feet get a little wide, slips a little bit off from kind of setting up that dodge. I won't spend too much time. What were you going to say?
Deemer, just two questions in the chat that I can kind of address at the same time. Talk about a common theme with you, Lucas, of taking a hard step, being explosive out of the dodge, and then bigger guys with faster feet, such as Charlie Kitchen. If you are a bigger guy, right, physically, and you're also really athletic, that just makes you more versatile, right? So if you're a guy like Charlie Kitchen, I feel like me, a guy that's, maybe taller, bigger, right, but I also have good feet, it's up to me to recognize of those two things, what more of my strength is, and then just use it more often. I think a guy like, we talk about the hard step and being explosive at a dodge, right? I said before, a guy like, maybe Chris Kluche, who a UNC player, a pro player for the Atlas now, even a guy like Matt Rambo, they're bigger bodies, but what they do is when they convince people with their feet where they want to go, people still have to respect that, no matter how quick your feet are. But if you're a bigger guy, you can utilize your size after you've gotten defensemen to think and appreciate, respect that commitment. You can use that size to barrel your shoulder past them. Whereas, look at a guy like Joey Manown here, is after he gets that commitment, that hard step, he's just using all speed to get to the cage. So it's just understanding, what you're trying to set up, and then how can you utilize your athleticism or your size to help after you've set that move up.
Yeah, and someone in the chat makes a point about Cooch, and I think Cooch is very similar, like shifty, but he's got big size, uses his frame well, but he also has good feet to explode and play those angles. I won't spend too much time on this one, just in interest of time, but similar thing here. A little drift up field, using a little rollback footwork, getting that guy to lunge, quickly gets his eyes up, feeds the crease. And then this kind of takes us, and Jules, we're going to have to kind of speed up just a little bit so that, we can get through as much as we can. But now this kind of takes us into our counter moves, and some of our secondary dodges, some of our redodges, and kind of how we think about those. So here's Joey Epstein again.
So go ahead, Deemer.
So Joey Epstein again here, working a little rollback, carrying up the alley, puts on the brakes. And again, once roll back here to increase angle, plants, swims right over top and gets a shot moving back to the net.
Yeah, I think just for we talked about FC before. He's not the quickest and he's not the biggest, but what he's really good at is utilizing the defenseman, right, to get them to commit in a direction, knowing that he's going to change direction because he's got good, really solid change of direction fundamentals. So when he gets defensemen going one way and they really think he's going upfield, he knows how to drop out of that and free his hands in these threatening positions. So when he rolls back here, he already knows it's basically a 5-and-5 inside roll once he gets his hands free out of that change of direction.
Yeah, and right here too, I think, Joey understands that by getting two hands on the stick and his eyes up, he's such a threat to feed that it's going to cause someone on ball to maybe really try to get to those hands to disrupt the feed. And that's what goes back to your initial point about getting your hands free, right? Coming out of your dodges. And then he's understanding that, and that allows him to then make that move again, get back under.
Change of direction fundamentals are definitely something everyone can master. How fast you come out of your change of direction is a different story. It depends on your athleticism, but working on it and understanding how to set it up is something everyone can do. Definitely. Just a question in the chat.
Yeah, agreed. And it's also, it takes time. There's some stuff like a 3-step rollback where I didn't feel like I really learned the proper technique with that until 2 years ago. So it's just, again, having that mindset of kind of continuing to develop. Here's a great example of move doesn't create a lot of separation on the first move, but using this counter move, redodge, roll back, little hesitation, good stick protection, gets his hands free back to the middle of the field. So again, same kind of idea. He's poised, just like Joey in that last clip. If he keeps carrying lefty, right, he's not going to take a high percentage shot. So the alley shots, step you lose angle, uses that roll back as he gets that guy to overcommit. He absorbs some contact. Nice shot.
This is what I think might be my favorite clip on the webinar.
This is your favorite clip. This is my guy James Shipley right here, down from Charlotte.
Yeah, I'll talk through this one, Deemer. So for me, this is something I can relate to with him. I think similar athleticism between the both of us. So what I love his thought process in this, he's committing to his first move, right? He believes that he's got a quick enough step to get separation at the point of attack. Like a guy like Sowers, a guy, who really believes, like a guy like Nick Hay, more like that type of athleticism. But what happens here, right, if you watch, the defensemen aren't always going to bite on your moves and they're not going to fall for it. But what you can do is after you commit to it, have a quick counter to when he jumps. So if you play it right now, Deemer, you'll see it commits to that hard right step, but then right away the defenseman jumps and he recognizes it. He takes one step and the second dodge is all reaction. The first one, I'm committing to it, hard left to left move, try to get to my left hand. Once he starts going, the defenseman's like, no, I know you're going that way. And then quickly uses his quick step again to swim him and get out of it. And now the defenseman's in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think, I think I have a clip of you on here, Jules, against Hopkins doing the same kind of thing. I think it's a combination of working on the move, to where you work on like a split, take a couple steps, then swim back just to get kind of comfortable so it doesn't completely come out of nowhere. But at the same time, just getting your body, more in a reactive, mindset after that first move versus predetermined. And that'll allow, your first move, I think, to be more realistic because you're not already thinking about the second move and setting it up. James does a really nice job here. His eyes are up. Make sure he draws the slide. All right. And I think, again, to your point about, the first move here, Tucker, in this initial dodge, his split to the top side, he doesn't really get this defender and really make a hard split down the alley. He really just is has a lot of speed going here, changes hands, but he reads that defender's hips open up, and then that's when he's able to hit that reaction and use that 3-step rollback, which, that's really one of Tucker's best parts of his game is his change of direction on these rollback moves is pretty unbelievable at the speed at which he does it.
Yeah, I think for him, it's kind of hard to know. I think sometimes he doesn't fully commit to his split dodges. It's hard to know when he's not fully committing because he's trying to set up his roll. And sometimes when he's not fully committing in the sense that the move just didn't work. So I think for me here, It looks like he's trying to split dodge. I don't think he does it consistently enough, like a guy like Sowers. Same with McKay, who's not consistently committing to it enough. But he recognizes that once he does start going that direction, whatever, it didn't work, he knows that he's got that roll kind of reactionary move in the second in his back pocket that he knows he's going to garner that separation once that defenseman starts running with him.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's one that the 3-step rollback, we talk a lot about that. We put up drills for that on FCL Online. I know you work on that a lot. Making sure that you're getting low into your roll, you're pivoting out of it properly. Here's one more angle. Again, you could see one thing I use sometimes, Jules, as like an analogy is like dodging in a phone booth. Like if your frame of your body doesn't threaten like outside of that phone booth or like outside of your own shoulders, a defender who's good is not going to react to that in that opposite direction. So you can almost see, if I just draw a line really quick, you can almost see that you pretty much have a straight line during that entirety of the split dodge, which I think is kind of what you're saying here.
Exactly. I think at this point, he could have just split to his left hand with doing no move and set up the exact same move.
Right. Which run hard left and just roll.
Yeah, it speaks to how deadly his split move is. And sometimes he doesn't even need to do that initial point of attack move, which is understanding your strengths and what you're trying to work for.
And just great awareness. But again, so everyone here, like this is the same kind of thing we're talking about. Like I really love seeing this clip from Jules. And what I think is really cool about this clip is that Jules is also using the thought of the razor pick, which is going to be in the back of the defender's mind here, because I'm sure they're communicating. And Jules, maybe you could speak to it a little bit. But this guy trying to be overly aggressive on ball and fight through the pick, and then Jules does a nice job of reacting to that after that first move, and then swimming back up top side.
Absolutely. If you played us at Rutgers, you knew that we were trying to do razor picks a lot. So I knew that I was going to try to commit on my first move, get going that way. If I broke him off, great, I'm coming around the goal righty, hands free. If not, I knew he would freak out and be like, oh, Jules is trying to use the razor pick and try to jump me. So I had both those things in my mind at the time. So I was like, if this works and I get to my right hand, I'm sprinting full. If it doesn't work, he's jumping, I'm reacting. And my reactionary move, just kind of something I practiced, worked on, is my swim.
Yep. Yeah, and I love that. And I felt like I had one this past summer where it was really one of the first times that I felt like I did that. I felt like for me growing up, dodging was always very reactive. I'm going to just keep going through this one. Yep. I felt like dodging was very predetermined, for me. And I felt like I didn't really kind of keep learning how to coach myself out of that and make it a more reactive process. So someone just asked that question. I think we're all trying to keep building towards that reactionary type moves. But at the same time, that initial point of attack, you do have to have some sort of a plan and kind of have a way that you want to attack that guy, but then be ready to, make moves out of it if it doesn't get your hands free as much as you like. Is there anything that you're seeing question-wise? I already had this one. Anything you're seeing question-wise that you want to speak to right now?
Are there times where we should not fully commit to a split dodge? I feel like the times you don't fully commit to a split dodge is really dependent on where you are in the field and what type of athleticism you have. I think a guy like right there in that video we showed before, Tucker, right? He didn't really need to commit to his split dodge there because he could get his hands free by kind of just splitting, running, and then rolling, right? But if he's a guy that doesn't have that elite roll, right, but he's got great feet, maybe he commits to that split a little bit more at the point of attack. So then off that first move, he's got his hands free right away, and defense either side of the field, he's a free shot. So it's just understanding your athleticism, where you are on the field, and what you're trying to accomplish to answer that question to Christian Thornton.
Yeah, and there's a question in here that I think kind of goes upon that too. About working on different moves and figuring out your skill set. But then the fear of failure that can be associated with that. And I think, especially for younger players, I think it's important, especially when there is a lot of different things to do. I think it's important to focus on, a couple moves to start. so that you can really prioritize your time and really work to make some progress. And then think of it as a growth mindset, where every year or every couple months, you feel like you master something or just get better at it and more comfortable. Then you can start thinking about, well, what's next? What can I add to my arsenal? What can I add to my bag of moves? And that's a process that both of us, have probably been doing for over 15 to 20 years. And I think
Absolutely.
that's the exciting part when you keep playing through the game is, yes, there is going to be failure associated. It's easy to say, accept it, embrace it, but it's part of the process, and you just have to keep doing it to get more comfortable with accepting that there's going to be times that it might not work out in your favor.
Absolutely.
So we have a question here. How do you decide when to redodge or not? So we kind of touched on that earlier, where it can be a gray area depending on your offense. What part of the possession that you're in. But really, there's also a handful of redodges that we can do, in the midst of a move right after our initial point of attack. So here in this next clip, this Army midfielder does an awesome job of using a pump fake after his initial move. All right. So he makes his initial move. He's getting down the alley. He really pumps this slide. And again, like here, his top hand is at the throat of the stick. Like he's not in a position to actually move it, but the body, the eyes, the pump, at that time really gets this hedging defender right here, number 46, to freeze. And then it opens him up to get back down the alley, get his stick back to the inside to improve his angle, and finish.
Yeah, I think the pump fake, if you're not in a position like out of your dodge to score yet and a slide is coming, I think the pump fake is just a move you could just always do. Kind of, coming around the cage for me, if I beat my man at the point of attack and I'm not breaking GLE yet, if I throw a pump, the guy behind me is going to kind of slow down a little bit because he's going to be like, oh, he's feeding the ball. And then that defenseman who might be siding me is going to react. So that just gives me time to it buys me time to read what's going on with a free move, because I'm not getting a guy on my back anymore. He's freezing. The guy in front of me is freezing. Now I'm buying time to see what I can do. If he freezes in front of me, maybe I can then slow down, speed back up real quick, come and shoot it. If he, I freeze him for a second and I keep running, but now that opens up another guy that's cutting, slipping behind him, whatever it is. It's just like a free money move that I think is great.
Yeah, I love that. And again, part of this too is understanding what you do with your body gives off a posture, and then how do the defenders read that posture. So very, very simply, it's dodger, feeder, and how can you go back and forth between that and then understand. So we have one question here: is dodging more about controlling your on ball guy and redodging about controlling the off ball guy? I would say kind of both. I think there's times when you're redodging that it controls the slide, but the guy that's on ball or trailing the initial dodge, he might relax because he thinks you're going to pass the ball. And so then that becomes the miscommunication between, does the slide need to come? Does the on ball guy need to stay on ball and recover, or does he just have to recover back into the rotation? So that's where we won't see it today. But, one thing we talk about is an MJ move, or like a bouncing rocker move. You see guys peel off of dodgers all the time because they think that they're done with their dodge based on their posture. Here's just a nice job of, initial move, a little bounce. All right. So he makes a split, a little hesitation. He's handling the slide, right? They end up recovering. Rolls back top side, guy falls. Now your hands are free to shoot. You can't always count on the guy falling, but that's the benefit of working your matchup until maybe the defenders make a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's just a great job of understanding that a short stick slid to him and that he knows he's athletic enough that with a rushed approach like that, that he's going to be able to set himself up back up field to have his hands free. So that's what goes back to the question about, kind of when is it, when is your turn over? When is it time to redodge? It's all situational, and it depends on how good of a redodger you really are, right? If I'm not, a guy that's a great redodger, I'm just really good at my first speed dodge, I'm not going to look to try to redodge as often as, maybe someone like Jeff Teat, right? Who's great at the redodge, kind of pulling guys out, and then going back underneath. I'm better at straight line speed, and then getting my hands free that way. So it's just understanding your strengths and then, kind of applying when you use those more often than not to your weaknesses.
You got a couple more here, and then I know you got a handful of questions. So that was the clip we saw earlier with the pump fake. You got the last two here. So here's kind of a combination here. I really love this clip. Jack Kelly's a Canadian midfielder for Penn State. He's drifting down, so he's getting his defender to suck down towards goal line, allowing him to get more top side. But again, like here's a midfielder, right? Not the same size as Asher Nolting, but he understands that maybe he's not a guy that's going to completely speed dodge and separate. So he does a great job here. Watch him work the matchup. He's backing the guy down, a little backhand fake, another pump fake. He handles a guy that doesn't really want to slide. A guy just, swings at him, but he's poised. Right. So first one, little backhand pump, frees this guy. Now this guy's going to try and take a whack. He's poised with his stick. Now another pump fake up top, inside roll, finish. I mean, it's a really, really great clip of redodging. And that's one where you might say, hey, man, you got to give it up. But he's doing everything with a purpose.
Yeah, I think he, especially for Canadians, it's just knowing your strengths, right? They're so good in these vulnerable positions because of the box game and their ability to kind of absorb that contact. So for him, like once he's kind of already in the middle like that, he knows that he's got enough stick protection that he can kind of get his hands free. So, maybe another guy might just try to bail, but if you got the stick protection and you're already in the side like that, you can make it happen.
Yeah. We've got a question here that's going to be a good one to talk about using which moves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you were mentioning Teat. So Jules mentioned Jeff Teat as another great example of, someone who's shifty, but maybe not the fastest guy out there. I think Jeff does a really good job of manipulating people, and you see he attacks underneath. He bounces, really does a nice job of changing speeds. I call this a step back, Jules, where you step back and you swing open your hips. And now he goes from this position where he could shoot this ball, right? Or he could feed the crease, but then he gets that rushed reapproach or that guy lunging back out at him because he's such a threat. And then he tucks back underneath on the face dodge, extends his hand and finishes.
And again, this is something, right? Jeff's doing these things because, right, maybe he doesn't have the firecracker feet that Mike Sowers has to just dust his man off that first move. But he's so comfortable, right, having someone on him, and then he knows he's quick enough that when he gets that defenseman to commit in the way that is vulnerable, right, then he knows he's taking advantage of him. So he's setting that defenseman up. I want you to bite. I want you to bite. And when you do bite, I'm guaranteed to get by you.
Yeah, and it's a great point. So if we rewind a little bit, this is back to the point of the dodging and redodging. It affects the off-ball players when you redodge, but also the on-ball defender. So as we go here, right here, 1, 2, as defenders, he's controlling with his change of speed and his redodging. And then 3, you see how it gets the on-ball defender to lunge out, get his hands free. So it's really cool how you can use the same moves to affect guys in different ways. And by watching film as a young player, you can take this and start working on it, start emulating it to then incorporate it in your game. And that's how you start to build your IQ and you start to build your skill level as well.
Look at somebody's question.
Jules, do you have any wrap up thoughts before we answer some questions?
I would just say, I think the point that we're overall with this that we're really trying to drive home is that, something that I've come to notice just teaching the game and being involved is players have different styles, different athleticism, different skill sets. And it's really about putting yourself in the positions that you can utilize your skills to be a threat against the defense. Like I said, with this clip with Jeff Teat, he understands, right, that he's not the fastest player. Okay. But he's putting himself in positions to utilize his strengths, which are feeding the ball, right? So when he frees his hand, he becomes a threat. And that's bad to the defense's eyes. He knows he can maintain pressure and have great stick protection. And he knows he's quick enough that if he kind of gets people to lunge at him, he's going to go by, right? So he's always catering to that. A guy like Curry, right? He's always trying to cater to his speed and set himself up to use that speed to get him that shot on the run. So I think it's just about starting to recognize what that is for you as a Dodger. And like Deemer said earlier, it's a journey, right? I'm still continuing as a player to recognize that as I continue to get more athletic and get better skill sets. I played boxes last year, so then maybe I'm better at using my physicality. Okay. So different things develop over the years, and then it's just about refining them and working through them and seeing what works best for you, and then putting yourself in that position more often than not.
Yeah, it's a great point. Great points all around. And again, I think, as we kind of wrap up and we dig into some questions here, it's about, there's some stuff that's black and white, like Jules and I talk about, okay, like posture on your dodge, selling your move, head and shoulders, jabbing your bottom hand, like, making sure that those things are kind of your staples, like when you bounce or when you redodge, creating some space, changing some speeds. But then there's a lot of it that's gray area. There's a lot of it that's situational. And you have to kind of go through those experiences, or you have to watch and you have to think about your game so you can start to apply it. We're going to get into some questions here. Jules, why don't you dig through one that I want to hit on real quick? Heath has a nice question about a 3-step rollback versus a quick 1-step. I think, if you're thinking maybe like hockey stop, I think the 3-step rollback where you're pivoting and opening up is really important above the cage, because that way you can open up and get going back towards the cage. I think the hockey stop really lends itself to a nice change of direction back at X, when you're kind of having to go more east-west because you don't want to open up into the crease. And then sometimes, on like the low wings, when you're a quick hockey stop and you can't roll back into the middle of the field just yet. So those are where I see the differences, in between the footwork. So just understanding both and then getting a feel for it as you're working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me on my end, I see a question here. I want to touch on, Deemer. When you first dodge, you don't get your hands free. What are you reading on the defender to know what secondary dodge you use? I think that comes down to, is your secondary dodge, and this is something I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit. If we saw in the clip, Deemer, who is the player at Richmond?
Where?
At Richmond, who did the left-to-left move?
That was Penn. That was James Shipley.
Oh, Penn, sorry. James Shipley, right? That left-to-left move where he went for the swim, right? That was a secondary dodge. That was more of like a redodge right away, where, you look at a guy like Asher Nolting, and his dodge when he got up to the 5-5, right? Sorry, one sec. His dodge when he got up to the 5-5, he knew he was kind of setting that up. So one was more of a reactionary secondary dodge, and then one was more of Asher Nolting going to set up to get to his right hand on that question mark. And sometimes, there's a gray area where you're at 5-5 and it's more of just a feeling out reactionary process. So it's kind of just coming down to understanding, the defenseman is going to give you options and you have to react to them. And sometimes you get to dictate what that's going to be, and you get your hands free. Like if I go up to 5-5 and I want to do a question mark and I go to do it, right, and I want to dictate that and he reacts, well, now it's up to me to react, and then maybe I roll out of that and shoot a shot around him. So it's just kind of having a plan and understanding your strengths, and then how to react to when things don't work out in your favor.
Yeah, I like that a lot. 2 quick ones here. Is the pump fake the same as a hitch? When we say pump fake, it's typically more of a pass fake. in a redodging scenario. A hitch, a lot of times we talk about, off of a catch, or like a stop and like fake the shot and then reattack on a hitch, for terminology purposes. And then what's a good way to work on reacting to your defender? Jules, I'll let you touch on it. But one thing I've found helpful is, working with a teammate or a coach, where you come up and like you're working on that initial move. And then when you make it, they either move with you or they run with you for a step or two and then let you go. And then as you're doing that, you have to just kind of read their body language. And it's just giving you like semi-live reps. They don't even have to have a stick. And that way, like if you see that guy open up his hips and really run with you to beat you to that spot, maybe you roll back, maybe you plant and swim back through. If you have a step on them, you want to keep going because your hands are free and get your shot off. So that's one thing that's helped me. It's almost the same thing as doing it live, but it's a little more scripted.
Definitely. Something funny. Everyone probably played this game growing up. Tag, when you're playing, someone's kind of trying to chase you and you're just kind of bobbing back and forth running and they're trying to catch you. That's a drill I do with someone in front of me where we say, I'm offense, you're defense. And I'm literally you're running side to side with the guy in front of you. And I'm just trying to keep up with you. And you're just kind of doing herky jerky motions, cut and change direction. All that is me, kind of reacting to your move, right? And trying to kind of bounce and get away from you. Similar to what Deemer's saying. That was a great drill I used to do to kind of help me with that. And that's more getting in your mind that quick second, like how can I react right away? Where the other dodges at that point of attack in my head are more, how can I commit to this and sell this? And then if something happens, I can quickly adjust on the fly because I have that split second decision making from that practice.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's see here. We have one question about finishing out of the dodge. That's not really the theme of today's presentation, but we've done a lot of shooting and different stuff on our FCL online platform. So you can check that out with all of the drills that we've posted over the last couple of years. Let's see what else here. Same thing. What drills do you work on for a quick release out of a dodge? Definitely would recommend you check that out. Jules, how about maybe one drill? I mean, it might be hard to show, but one drill for like a quick feet or, something that you think is realistic, for working on your feet a little bit.
Definitely. I think just keep it simple, stupid, right? If you want to get better at your right to right move, all right, what it's going to take is getting a better hard left step. So how can you set yourself up in the backyard on a field to practice hitting the ground on that left step over and over again, right? Keeping it simple, small, right? With no stick. How can I hit the ground hard? Left foot, left foot, left foot. So in your head, when you're going to go into, more of a live situation versus defenseman, you're running into it. That left hard step is more natural, right? And then you start to incorporate your head and your eyes, and then you get your stick involved. And how can you get your stick, right, to come with you to commit into that dodge? And it's just kind of building up the ladder. That's how I've kind of always broken up my my technique to get better at footwork. Is start small with what I'm trying to execute, and then work up to having my stick, and then work up to having a live person in front of me. And then I go and try it in practice. And then the last step is me doing it in a game. And I see how I look in the game on film. And then I come back to the drawing board and say, okay, I need to continue to recommit to it. See, what did I not sell enough? Was it not my butt end? Was it not my shoulder, my head, my eyes, whatever it is?
Yeah, it's really cool, Jules, just in general, to see the process of seeing the move, trying the move, practicing, getting feedback from a coach, or watching some video of yourself, watching the move again, and then try it in practice, you fail, and you just keep going. And eventually it starts to sink in. Like this summer was the first time that I felt like I implemented a swim move as a part of my dodge, like reactionary. And I can vividly remember like doing a video teaching it, which was just another way to help me get it to sink in. But I was just working on split, swim. And like eventually I just did it in the game. I wasn't thinking about it. And it's just cool to see that, and I think it's stuff that I just wish I was doing younger. But hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's funny. When I was in high school, I'd never dodged with intention. It was kind of always reactionary, always like, I'll just do this because I think this is what I'm supposed to do. And then when I got to college, I was like, wow, like I'm not that quick anymore where I can just like split the stick in front of my hand and run by guys. So I'm like, what do I need to do now since I'm so small, right? I'm a skinny guy. How can I start to utilize the athleticism I know I have and start to apply it? And then I was like, I need to start committing to my moves more. And that's when I started to kind of think through that process. And one more question I have here. I think it was someone was asking, how do you figure out what your strengths are? I think a great way to learn what your strengths are is to kind of just have conversations with people that are watching you play. And it's kind of recognizing, tendencies for what helps you be successful while you're playing. And then kind of another thing I did was looking at my body type and kind of comparing it to other players and saying like, okay, I think I could do that. Maybe someone stepping down from 18. For me, like if I watch kind of music, in my head, I'm not like, that's not something I can do. And I don't think I can replicate that. So I'm not going to try that. But, maybe a move, I'll use Jeff Teat, something where he gets down the alley right there and he kind of pops away, right? I'm like, I think I have all those things in my repertoire to use. Maybe I can utilize that to my advantage and have, the body position and the stick skills to do it. Maybe I could start doing that and seeing how it fleshes out. And then you start to take things from people's games and it becomes, you work it in years and it becomes a strength of yours.
Yeah, I love it. All right, man. Well, look, again, we really appreciate everyone who's tuned in. I know we went a little over time, but awesome having you all on. We appreciate your support. Jules, thanks a lot. Stay tuned. Make sure you give Jules a follow, give Mission Prime to follow, because that's going to be stuff that you can learn from as well. We have our FCL online platform with drills for all positions, offense, attack, dodging, footwork. So definitely check that out. It's been a great resource, for players that we work with of all ages and coaches. Jules, thanks a lot for your time, man.
Absolutely. This was a blast, Deemer. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Stay safe, everyone, and stay tuned for more webinars and content that we'll be posting out, in the coming months. See you guys.
Later, everyone.